You kind of see the optics from the inside and the outside. What does the Pakistani market look like from the outside?
Well, I've been visiting Pakistan since 3 years ago. First time I came, it was 2022. And at that time, I must be honest with you, I was a little scared, because Pakistan in the Western media doesn't always have a very favorable image. But since I've been coming here, especially last year, as I visited more frequently, and having moved here officially 3 months ago, I actually find that the way that Pakistan is being portrayed by media in certain parts of the world is not always but mostly not fair. Actually, what I find here is that people are very friendly, people are very warm. It's a great place to work. I think also a very good place to do business.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम and welcome to the Pakistan Observer podcast. मेरा नाम अब्दुल्ला मलिक है और मेरे साथ आज मौजूद हैं Ivu. Ivu is from the International Labour Organization's office in Pakistan. Ivu, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Pakistan Observer.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Ivu, you've moved around the world. You've been to a lot of places. You've worked in a bunch of places. And now you're here in Pakistan. You kind of see the optics from the inside and the outside. What does the Pakistani market look like from the outside?
Well, I've been visiting Pakistan since 3 years ago. First time I came, it was 2022. And at that time, I must be honest with you, I was a little scared, because Pakistan in the Western media doesn't always have a very favorable image. But since I've been coming here, especially last year, as I visited more frequently, and having moved here officially 3 months ago, I actually find that the way that Pakistan is being portrayed by media in certain parts of the world is not always is mostly not fair. Actually, what I find here is that people are very friendly, people are very warm. It's a great place to work. I think also a very good place to do business. And so far, it's been a really rewarding experience. So glad to be here.
Glad to be here and glad to have you, Ivu. Thank you for being in Pakistan and doing some great work. I'm also interested because you work with international brands and you work with local brands. You try and putting those together. What do the international brands think of Pakistan? What do they view Pakistan as? What is the market looking like today?
Well, I cannot speak for the international brands, but what I see in the conversations that we're having with them is that they're always looking to de-risk their supply chains. Many brands still have a significant base in China, so they adopt a China plus strategy. So some share of their production comes from China and will not move anywhere else because other places simply don't have the same volume potential. But Pakistan is regarded as a place with a lot of potential, but also with a lot of uncertainty. Security keeps coming up. But also predictability of business, stability of the ecosystem here for business. People have, of course, been trying out different markets, and Pakistan, I think, is on the list for many international brands as a high potential location because it has abundant labor.
Right.
It has very significant cotton production base. There's a lot of quality manufacturers, it's also a little bit more. It has a bit more proximity to the Western market than the East Asian production countries. So, I think there's still a lot of unused potential in Pakistan, and I think one of my priorities with the program that I represent is to realize that potential with the stakeholders here in Pakistan.
Right. And you touched a little bit upon the labor market in Pakistan. I want to understand how it's different to the rest of the world. So, in terms of the safety, security aspect of it, but also in terms of the expertise that we have, the level of competition we have, how are we comparing? How can we compare our labor to the rest of the world?
Well, a key difference that I'm seeing, just if you walk into a factory, is it's very striking. In any other factory that I've visited in other parts of the world, whether it's in Bangladesh or China or Vietnam or Ethiopia or Haiti, it's mostly women behind the sewing machines. And here in Pakistan, it's really the other way around. It's the men working because informal employment. The males are the ones who get the jobs, and the women are very often working in the informal sector. So that's definitely a difference. In terms of skilled labor, I think Pakistan is still developing. There's a lot of skilled labor, but there's also still a lot of upskilling that can be done. And in terms of labor market regulations, we're still working with the International Labour Organization, whom I work for, to help Pakistan move into legislation and regulations that match the business requirements of the 21st century.
Right. And so you guys are an international organization working in Pakistan. What does the ILO do to bring in more women in the workforce?
We focus a lot on skills development. We focus a lot on female leadership development. We're also raising awareness, and this is particularly for Better Work, that if you're not investing in your female workforce, that you're not realizing the potential talent that you have in a country like Pakistan. So we have a program that is called the Gender Equality and Returns Program, GEAR, which is focusing on enabling women to access formal employment and to also create opportunities for promotion for women. And what we see in countries, in factories where we've rolled out this approach, is that enterprise profitability goes up, workforce morale goes up. So it's good for everyone. It's not just the right thing to do, it's also good for business. And so we are looking for more of these initiatives in Pakistan, and we're ready if employers allow us to move forward with them as a partner.
Right. And I suppose that gender would be a part of a bigger program. Is there a bigger program that you guys might have that you at the ILO are working with?
Yeah, so the program we have here is called Better Work. And Better Work is really the Better Work flagship intervention to promote labor standards compliance, worker well-being, and business competitiveness in the garment and textile industry. We've been active in Pakistan since 2022. Okay. And what we do is we engage factories, brands around the world, as well as the government at federal and provincial level, and the social partners, so employers and workers and their representatives. And we build an alliance with all of these stakeholders to help factories come into compliance through problem solving and bringing people together in dialogue. And at the same time use all the evidence and all the data that we generate at the factory level to support evidence-based policy setting. So to make sure that the regulations are fit for doing business and support enterprises in keeping it up.
And so this program, this Better Work program, is it like a direct program related with the factories, or is it a government sort of related program? What do you guys engage with?
It's a bit of both. So in Pakistan, we get a lot of our support, financial support, through the Export Development Fund, which is under the Ministry of Commerce, and basically contributions from the exporters go into that fund, and we receive a share to operate our program. Right. So our governance consists of representatives of government as well as the social partners. We also have 120 factories that participate in our program as direct beneficiaries. And those factories basically sign up for a continuous learning journey. So they sign up for services that we provide them to measure compliance and to also advise them on improvements that can be made based on a process of management and workers coming together in a process that we call workplace dialogue. Right. To identify what is really important to them, what are the priorities, and what steps they're going to take to build stronger systems and to improve communication in the factory.
And so, for example, if I am a factory owner, what motivation do I have to become a part of the program? So
it's different things. When I came into this area of work 20 years ago, I was still a student, and I went to Cambodia to do an internship at what is now called Better Factories Cambodia. It's the predecessor, basically, of Better Work. And I just thought it's the right thing to do. You protect worker well-being, you support social protection, you make sure that the law is being followed, the same rules for everybody, and then companies can compete based on design or based on efficiency, but not on to what degree they make their workers work harder. Now, what I've learned since that time is that, of course, that can be your motivation, but if you take this process seriously, it's also just a strong investment. So what we're seeing is that factories participating in this process and taking it seriously, they reduce conflict, they reduce workforce absenteeism, they reduce accidents, and they reduce accidents in the workplace. So factories become more efficient over time. They get more out of the talent of their workforce, and they also build stronger relations with their international clients, which is good for business. So in Vietnam, where we have operated the program for over 10 years, we're seeing that factories in Better Work have become 25% more profitable. We see that workforce turnover goes down because workers want to stay in that factory, so they come back in the following production season. So there's many financial business benefits, financial benefits for business. And so in the end, it's a no-brainer. If you don't do it, you're left behind as a company. And so for us, it doesn't really matter why a company wants to do it, but it's definitely in their interest to do it.
Right. And would it be a correct understanding to say that the Better Work program sort of acts as a bridge between factories and between potential buyers, and that sort of has other benefits as well? Would that be the correct, simple understanding of it?
To some degree. I mean, the factories are, of course, able to make their own connections with their international clients. But what we do see is that factories participating in Better Work, they get better terms of trade. So they get better orders, bigger orders. Sometimes the price per order is improving for them. There's more loyalty between supplier and buyer, which is really important for the resilience of factories in times of crisis, for example. So during COVID, we saw that some factories lost their customers and other factories kept them. And that also has to do with the level of trust between the two organizations. And we try to contribute to that trust by building, transparency, stronger systems, and making sure that, we take some of the risk out of that business relationship. So I wouldn't say that, it's thanks to us that the factories work with international customers, but we do try to strengthen those bonds.
Right. I want to understand the flip side as well. So I want to understand the buyer's end of things as well. But before I move on to that, I do want you to break it down. So if a factory becomes a part of the program, is it a paid sort of thing, or do they sign up, or how does that work?
So factories pay based on their revenue and the number of workers.
Do they pay the ILO or? Yeah,
they pay our program. So that's a contribution they make. They get at market value consultancy services, and they get exposure in the international marketplace. You could see it that way. Mm-hmm. So if a factory joins Better Work, the first thing we do is sit down with the factory stakeholders to make a list of things they want to work on.
Okay.
So we'll get the workers out of the production floor, and we'll bring them together in a room together with management, and we do a thing that we call self-diagnosis, and we let them self-identify the key issues and also the root causes behind those issues. We find it very important because whatever we do, if there's one thing left after we leave, it has to be stronger dialogue between management and workers, because they are the owners of they're the stakeholders. It's their factory, right? So they must be able to work on that process independently. All we do is really facilitate that process. So when they've done that, we try to keep them going. We do a lot of participatory techniques to make sure that the workers are comfortable, to make sure that the managers are receptive and taking it seriously. And typically that goes very well. We, as an ILO program, of course, focus on standards compliance. The ILO is the standard bearer of international labor conventions.
Okay.
And so we measure every year how the companies are performing towards those labor standards and provincial labor code.
And so just simply, if you could tell me what those standards would be.
So this is, for example, no forced labor, no child labor, health and safety, so making sure that the workers are just as healthy when they leave the factory as when they got into the factory. Payment of wages in full on time, working hours within reasonable limits. And so all those standards have been codified in provincial law. as well as in international labor standards that are part of our compliance tool.
Right. And so the first step is that factories sign up, and then there's a bit of a self-diagnosis. And so I had the understanding that perhaps members of the ILO or the program go into the factory and tell the factory owners that this is wrong with you, and this is how you're going to fix it. But that's not how it works.
No, we don't want to be the police, because in the end, if you're starting to point fingers, you're not going to have the same long-term impact. So, of course, sometimes it helps to have a critical friend and to have somebody look at the standards from a distance.
Right,
so, if you're 365 days a year in a factory, you don't have the same perspective as an independent assessor coming in, and doing a review. So we have our perspective. We put that on top of their self-identified issues. And of course, when the international brands are monitoring compliance in their supply chain, they will look at our data.
Okay.
But we're telling them that if factories take the improvement process seriously, and if they constantly provide updates on how the factory is working to rectify what is out of compliance, then what we hope is that the factories at some point develop that capacity in-house.
Right.
The workers can monitor their own conditions, and the brands rely on factories self-reporting on what's been achieved.
Understood. So let's put a trajectory, right? They've signed up, a factory has signed up, I'm a factory owner, I've signed up. We've done a bit of self-diagnosis, and then we've had a consultation with you guys where we discuss these are the things that we want to work on, and this is what we want to fix. And that's a consultation that takes place between me and my workers. What happens after that?
So afterwards, we continue that process of workplace cooperation. We have regular visits to the factory where representatives of the workforce, and if there's a union present in the factory, that union will be included if it's representative, as well as management representatives, constantly, checking in on the improvement plan, prioritizing. New information comes to light because we're increasingly enabling the workers to be the monitors of their own workplace. And so what we do, for example, is, okay, let's take a factory tour with the workers. Let's do a hazard hunt.
Right.
And let's take a look at the hazards or safety risks in the factory. Which machines are not properly guarded, where our chemical substance is not properly labeled, are there any emergency exits that are blocked, etc. And so if workers can develop that expertise and that skill set for themselves, eventually the factories become safer because they can prevent issues before we have to, identify them.
Right. And so there's a bit of back and forth that happens between the program and the factory. And the end goal that I've understood is that you want to make the factories compliant so that when international companies are placing their orders, they're being responsible about it.
Correct. And what we don't expect is for the factories to become perfect. Perfect factories don't exist anywhere. What we are striving to achieve is behavioral change.
Right.
So in certain cases, factories might choose to hide the issues, to cover up the issues, to deny the issues. So what we're trying to achieve is that the factories become transparent, that they collaborate in the improvement process, that they proactively identify what could be worked on and what are the underlying root causes to be addressed, and that they build stronger systems in-house. If we can achieve that and give the factories the tools to keep it up, then at some point our value add has been realized and we move on to other factories or other industries.
Have you been able to achieve that in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, it's still early days. With our program, we had a bit of a slow start because when we established the program here, we came out of COVID and there were the floods, etc. But we've really gained momentum now, and some factories have been with us in a 3-year journey, and we do see a lot of improvement at individual factories yet.
Yeah.
But we're also conceptualizing at this point a second phase, which we hope can run until 2030 to really support Pakistan in becoming a responsible a hub for responsible production. So it's all about building critical mass with a number of factories that have been through that process, building an evidence base so that the national institutions in Pakistan can then take it forward.
Right. And you said that you sort of sign up in the start, right? If I, as a factory owner, sign up, is that a lifelong signing up that I do, or how does that work?
No, they can renew it every year. So they sign up for a 12-month process, and they can opt out at any time, obviously. But typically, a factory completes that 1-year process and then does another 1 year and another 1 year. We've had factories in other countries that have been with us for 10, 15 years. I'm not saying that is the gold standard, because at some point you create a dependence, right? And you need to be able to step back and move elsewhere. So in Pakistan, what we will be looking at is 3, 4, 5-year journeys for individual factories. And then we just move on and focus on other places that need us harder, basically.
Right. And so you said it's 120 factories that have signed up?
At this point,
At this point. Are these across all industries, or is there a specific industry that the program focuses on?
We focus at this point on cut, make, pack in garment and textile, and primarily on the Karachi area and in Punjab. So Punjab, Lahore, Faisalabad and Sialkot. But we don't want to limit ourselves to those places. So we've tested basically the approach in Pakistan with very good and promising results. And so we're looking to scale under the second phase of the program to other geographies, as well as potentially other industries that are adjacent to ours. So sportswear, travel goods, leather, cotton mills, and potentially even other industries.
And these are just factories that are exporting, or is it factories that are operating locally as well?
The majority right now is factories with direct exports, but if it were up to us, we would have a much greater number of small, medium-sized enterprises. So actually right now we've just conceptualized an intervention that is free of charge for small and medium-sized enterprises, where we offer some foundational learning.
Right.
So any workplace that is in garment and textile within our mandate could sign up for that, and they would be able to access a lot of free of charge learning, which could then lay the foundation for them to join Better Work later on, or to just continue operating on that basis.
And is there some sort of a certification that I get at the end of the 1 year that I've signed up for? How does one sort of take that forward to international buyers and say that here I am with the certification from the ILO, that I'm a compliant factory?
Well, we don't do certificates, but we do have a online portal which lists all the factories and provides to the brands information on the level of compliance of each factory. And so factories have open access to the compliance performance of factories and also the level of improvements that they've made.
Right.
And we believe that is actually a much more credible process because, like I said, factories never become perfect. So a certificate will always give you the impression that everything is taken care of, but there's always things that need to be worked on. And what I think is more credible is that you, as a factory, become transparent and you take the process very seriously. You demonstrate that. And that brands get insight in what the factory has done, so that the factory can also say to the brand, look, we've done our part. What are you going to do to make this work? Right. We're trying to raise wages. Are you going to look at your procurement policies? What about your lead times? What about your delivery of components, fabrics, trimmings, etc., so that we can get our orders out of the factory by the agreed date, and so to avoid that the workers have to work overtime. So it's really about that, getting that equation right. And I think it's really also now time for the brands to show up and to support the exporters of Pakistan in that process.
Right. And you've said that 120 companies have signed up, or 120 factories have signed up for this program. What are some of the immediate benefits that you, as an external body, as an external program, but also those on the flip side inside the factories have seen?
Immediate benefits are, of course, that you as a factory are able to say that you're participating in Better Work. Yeah. As soon as you start up with Better Work, you're going to be able to say that. And there are brands out there that use that as a qualifying criterion for factories to be fit for business. If you're in Better Work, fine, we can work with you. If you're not in better work, then they won't consider you. So that is a very tangible benefit for factories. The benefits that I was talking about in terms of workforce morale, in terms of efficiency gains, stronger ties with customers, business profitability, that of course takes time to materialize, and it's never guaranteed. It depends on the extent to which you as a factory take that process seriously. What we see in other countries where we've been operating longer is that it typically takes 3 or 4 years for factories to achieve that level. So there's a very steep learning curve, and then after 3 or 4 years, you see that it's bearing fruit.
Right. Would there be a? I know you said that it's a bit early in the phase of the program, but would you be able to share a story, a success story, where you have been able to put a factory with a buyer?
Well, we don't do direct matchmaking, so I'm never gonna, call up a brand and say, look, this factory is really the one for you, then you should, get your t-shirts produced there. But what we do see is that if we're looking at the amount of brands sourcing from Pakistan in 2022 and the number of brands year to year from 23, 24, 25, we see steady growth in the number of brands sourcing from the country. We also see, for example, that Disney has put Pakistan back on its permitted sourcing countries list. That was not the case before we arrived. And as soon as we set up operations here, Disney said, okay, let's allow our licensees to do business with Pakistani business. So that's definitely a success for the country. In terms of individual factories, we're still working on our evidence base. As we speak, we are doing research with the Lahore School of Economics to really get, contextual information from all the factories on top of the compliance data that we're harvesting. And that will really tell us to which extent the factories have, experienced real business benefits.
Right.
And also, what are the remaining barriers for them to get where they want to be? So maybe a follow-up conversation.
Right. But if you could tell me, because you've said that it's a bit of a initial phase in Pakistan, I suppose that Better Work program operates in other countries as well. Is there a particular country where the program is working very, very efficiently, and it could be like a test case and a model for us as well?
Yeah, I mean, Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia are countries where we've been around for over a decade, and we've seen all those benefits materialize there. And I think Pakistan can learn a lot from it, and can also get to that level more quickly. The learning curve can be steeper because in those countries it took time to build up critical mass and to fine tune the model. And in Pakistan, we're at this point really hitting the ground running, so to say. So a lot of the things that we've learned that work well are right now being implemented. And that's also why we've demonstrated very significant growth in the last 18 months here.
Right. Take me to the other end of the spectrum, so the factories. Why are they focusing on Better Work? Why are they on board? What is it in it for them?
Well, for them, it's, I think, priority 1, 2, and 3 is making sure they're attractive to the international marketplace. More and more key markets. So in Europe, there's multiple countries, and also European Union collectively, various states in the United States. All these jurisdictions have formulated access requirements for companies, and not just in our industry, to be able to do business. So if you have an international supply chain as a company and you want to sell your goods in these countries, there are certain things that you have to demonstrate. You have to demonstrate that you're mitigating adverse effects of your business, or that you're preventing negative impacts of your business in the places where those goods have been manufactured. That's called human rights due diligence. And so how we're positioning the program is that we are a tool for these businesses, both the clients, the brands, as well as the factories, to meet the market requirements that have been formulated for those jurisdictions.
Right. Is the government an active part of this program? And if it is, how so? And if it's not, what more can it do?
We get a very strong support from the Ministry of Overseas Pakistanis and Human Resource Development, as well as from the Ministry of Commerce. So they're in our governance. We report to them on a very regular basis.
Right.
We receive financial support from the Export Development Fund, which is under Commerce. And we work also, it's a two-way street, because we allow factories to be part of the Global Better Work franchise, so to say, but we also generate a lot of data which can support the process of optimizing the laws of
Right.
Pakistan. So
Right.
what we're seeing based on the data that we collect, but also the anecdotal feedback that factory managers share with us, is that sometimes it's not so easy to do business in Pakistan because some of the regulations are outdated. The ILO has been working with the stakeholders of Pakistan, so the authorities at provincial level and the social partners, to help redesign new labor codes, to consolidate various regulations that are in place. And so we provide the data from all the work that we do at the factory level to that process. So we can, for example, highlight that wage payments in certain cases are problematic, and these are the steps that could be taken by the employer to
Right.
mitigate. But also these are the things that government could do to just help factories by eliminating gray areas or eliminating regulations that are in contradiction.
Right. I know that you mentioned focusing on the garment industry. Is the goal to also focus on other industries across the board?
Yes, in principle, yes. We don't want to do all that work necessarily ourselves. There's limitations to what we can do. We don't believe that it's just a matter of upscaling.
Right.
And also the model that we have is very particular for garment and textile, because the brands that we engage, we've got partnership agreements with 50 leading brands and retailers. These brands are very well known. They've already been exposed to 30 years of criticism, and they're taking their work very seriously. Other supply chains don't necessarily have that same model. The lead company doesn't have the same level of visibility in the marketplace. And so you need to look for something else as a lever. But what we do believe is that the tools and the data that we generate as a program here in Pakistan, and also the learnings that we get from other countries, they can be applied to other industries by engaging national institutions. So in the next phase of work, and we're right now conceptualizing that, we want to train many Pakistan institutions.
Right.
In utilizing, the tools that we've developed, in learning from our team. So we'll invite them to come to the factories with us so they can see how we work, and then they can replicate aspects that are applicable to their work according to their mandate. So that could have a positive effect on other industries. And what we're really striving to achieve is to build an ecosystem for sustainable compliance without doing all of this ourselves. We don't want Pakistan to become dependent on our program. We want to invest so that at some point others can carry the torch on their own behalf.
Perfect. I also want to know, I suppose that the ILO and the Better Work program is no, it's no secret anymore. The work is changing under artificial intelligence. What's the plan over there? Is that also a part of the future of better work and, the ILO's wider mandate?
Sure. I'm not yet certain how it's going to pan out, but definitely there's a lot of underutilized potential there. I think something that's very interesting is predictive modeling. So you could say, for example, that based on certain parameters, so the number of international clients, the amount of workers, geographical location, products, production processes, these parameters will probably define what would be the key issues in a factory, what would be the risks in terms of non-compliance, the risks of safety, And that will allow us to direct our resources more effectively. So if there are factories that are, according to a predictive model, low risk, we could maybe focus on the factories that are higher risk. At the same time, I've learned there are limitations to such models. And so we'll probably have to see where it goes, but those are tools that can allow us to work more efficiently and to reach a greater number of factories. I think it's even more interesting if factories adopt those approaches themselves, so they can monitor their own circumstances in the workplace and say, look, typically during overtime, for example, we see a greater number of accidents in the workplace. How are we going to use AI to, come up with recommendations or actions to mitigate? Maybe there are more crashes on the road by workers communicating after a night shift, right? And that results in absenteeism the following day because the worker doesn't show up. How can AI help us to come up with, a campaign to make sure that workers, wear a helmet to the factory? We're also thinking about these things outside the factory wall, because in the end, all of this needs to be part of a comprehensive intervention to make factories competitive and to promote worker well-being.
Right. Ivo, if you took 30 seconds to make a pitch of Better Work to factory owners, what would you say?
Well, Better Work is primarily focused on changing how business is done and changing how policy is made. So it's always about those two things. We need the factories to build evidence, and we can make a lot of tangible impacts to individual factories. But we also need the government to play its part and to support it in making sure that the regulations are effective.
Thank you so much for being at Pakistan Observer Podcast. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.